Sometimes, the most dangerous person in someone's life is the one who once promised to love them forever. By the time police sat down with 37-year-old Jacob Spray, they already knew this case was dark. But Jacob didn't know how much they knew. He thought this was still a missing person case. He thought maybe he could act confused, act worried, act desperate enough to make officers believe he was just another scared fiancé trying to figure out what had happened to the woman he loved. But across from him, investigators were already piecing together something much more sinister. The woman at the center of it all was 25-year-old Jamie Wilson. Jamie was young, driven, and building a future for herself. She was working as an executive chef while also pursuing her master's degree in organizational management and leadership through Washington State University. The people who knew her described her as focused, hardworking, and determined. She had goals. She had plans. She was trying to move forward with her life. But on March 26, 2024, that future was stolen from her. Earlier that day, Jamie had been on a phone interview with a new employer. It should have been an exciting moment. She was discussing what sounded like a potential promotion or new opportunity, one more step toward the kind of life she had been working hard to build. Then, during the call, something terrifying happened. Her employer suddenly heard a disturbing scream. Then the line went dead. That single moment changed everything. The scream was alarming enough that it immediately raised concern. A welfare check was requested. Police began trying to locate Jamie, and very quickly, the situation turned from worrying to urgent. Later that same day, investigators made a devastating discovery. Jamie's body was found inside a mobile home near the trailer park where she lived. There were obvious signs of a violent struggle. She had bruising around her left eye, her chin, and her nose. There were cuts along the bridge of her nose and at the side of her lips. The most severe injuries were around her neck. The trauma there told a horrifying story. Jamie had been brutally attacked and strangled to death. She was only 25 years old. For investigators, the first step was obvious. Start with the people closest to her. Talk to family. Talk to friends. Talk to anyone who had recently seen or spoken to her. And very quickly, one name moved to the center of the investigation, Jacob Spray. Jacob and Jamie had been in a relationship, and despite the relationship breaking down, they were still legally tied together. According to Jacob, they had been separated since Valentine's Day and were in the process of filing for divorce. He claimed things were mostly cordial between them. He claimed there was no major conflict. He claimed they still cared about each other. But when police arrived to speak with him that evening, his behavior immediately stood out. By around 8 p.m., officers approached Jacob at his home. He appeared anxious almost instantly. Before anyone even gave him much information, he was already panicking, demanding to know what was going on with Jamie. He said police had contacted him while he was getting off work, and now he couldn't reach her. He told officers he had called her sister, but she would not speak to him. According to Jacob, all she said was, "I can't talk to you right now." That alone had him, in his words, literally in tears, and freaking out. At first glance, it might have sounded like fear. Maybe even genuine fear. But there was something about the performance that didn't sit right. He seemed too eager to talk, too eager to explain, too eager to shape the story before investigators had even asked the important questions. Police kept their tone calm. They didn't accuse. They didn't reveal much. They simply let Jacob talk. And Jacob talked. He said he and Jamie had not crossed paths that day. He claimed they had spoken earlier in the afternoon, around 3:51 p.m., but he hadn't physically seen her. He said they had been texting about a song. He described it as a popular song with lyrics about God giving and taking away. He told officers he had messaged her saying that the song would always haunt him. Even that detail felt strange. It was oddly emotional, almost theatrical. But Jacob pushed forward like someone trying hard to prove there was still warmth between them. He said they were still cordial. He said they were still chill. He wanted police to believe that even though the marriage was ending, there was no bitterness. Then, almost in the same breath, he began revealing a very different relationship. He mentioned that Jamie had once threatened him with domestic violence accusations. He brought up a previous incident where he said he had called police on her. He said she had shown up at his place claiming she wanted her dog, but he believed she was trying to create trouble. He painted himself as the calm one, the reasonable one, the one who had simply been trying to manage a difficult situation. It was the kind of over-explaining that often makes investigators pay even closer attention. He also began offering theories nobody had asked for. Maybe Jamie had gone off with new friends, he suggested. Maybe she was with a woman she had hooked up with before. He even brought up the fact that she had previously been involved with a girl in the trailer park where they had once lived. He said their marriage had struggled in part because Jamie was bisexual, and he rambled through that topic in a way that felt less like useful information and more like nervous deflection. The officers let him keep going. The more he talked, the more his body language betrayed him. His voice trembled. His answers were unstable. He bounced from one possibility to another, trying to explain Jamie's absence in every way except the one investigators were beginning to suspect. As the conversation continued, police asked him to walk through his day. Jacob said he had been in Moscow and had come back to Pullman around 6 o'clock or 6:30 p.m. He worked in food service, cooking for a sorority, and he explained his routine in detail. Dinner usually went out at 6 o'clock, he said, and then he would spend a few minutes wiping down counters and cleaning before leaving. On the way home, he claimed, he stopped at Walmart and got a drink. Again, there was nothing obviously impossible in that timeline. But investigators weren't just listening for impossible details. They were listening for weak ones. They were listening for anything that sounded rehearsed, anything that shifted, anything that might change when asked a second time. And sure enough, the story began to wobble. When officers asked him exactly when he had called one of them back, Jacob became unsure. Maybe he had already gotten home. Maybe he was still in the parking lot. Maybe he checked the voicemail first. Maybe he returned the call while pulling in. He didn't seem to settle on one clear answer. That matters in interviews like this. When someone is telling the truth about an ordinary day, details may be fuzzy, but the core sequence usually stays steady. With Jacob, even simple things were slippery. He also explained that officers had asked him whether he had keys to Jamie's trailer. He said no. According to him, they had agreed that he wouldn't have any, and she kept the key set. He did mention he had another set somewhere else, but he insisted he wasn't using them and wasn't the one entering her space. Then, in another sudden shift, he started floating other alarming possibilities. Maybe she had carbon monoxide poisoning, he said, because something had been wrong with the propane. Or maybe she had been hanging around people and done some bad blow. It was a wild statement to make about a woman he claimed to love, and it added another layer to the growing unease around him. He wasn't just worried. He seemed to be scattering explanations everywhere, hoping one might stick. The officers noticed all of it. They kept circling back through his timeline. They asked similar questions in slightly different ways. They repeated subjects he thought they had already moved past. It was controlled pressure. A psychological squeeze. They wanted to see where the cracks would form. And they did. At one point, the questioning shifted toward his phone. The officers wanted to know what he had been doing since being contacted by police. Had he texted anyone? Had he called Jamie? Had he been sitting there the whole time? Jacob said yes, he had been texting and calling Jamie. He was still trying to reach her. Still trying to understand what was going on. Then came the moment he had been dreading. For much of the interview, police had been careful not to tell him too much. But Jacob was growing increasingly agitated. He wanted answers. He kept demanding to know what was happening. Finally, one officer gave him a limited piece of the truth. They had found Jamie at the trailer, the officer said, and she was not doing well. Medics were trying to help her. They were just trying to understand what had happened. That wording was deliberate. Calm. Incomplete. But powerful. Jacob now knew this was serious. And yet even then, he kept trying to distance himself. When asked whether he had been at the trailer park recently, Jacob claimed that the last time he had met Jamie, it had been outside the park, not inside. He continued insisting that everything between them had been fine. They weren't fighting, he said. They had been fine the night before. Fine that day too. He said he had even texted Jamie about the divorce paperwork in which he had asked whether she needed to be there on Friday. He told officers she had said she loved him. He asked her, "You promise?" and she said yes. That detail reveals a lot. Even in the middle of pretending to be calm and cooperative, Jacob was describing himself as emotionally dependent on Jamie. He admitted he still loved her. He admitted that if she had asked to get back together, he would have done it, in a heartbeat, even if it meant throwing away his dignity. Those weren't the words of someone who had emotionally moved on. Those were the words of someone still deeply attached, still needy, still unable to accept losing control over the relationship. He even told police that earlier that day, Jamie had talked about using the $1,000 he had given her to move away. According to Jacob, she mentioned moving to Spokane and possibly going to California with a friend named Danny. Jacob tried to sound casual about it, even joking awkwardly about not being threatened because Danny was gay. But underneath that fake calm was something much uglier. This was not a man at peace with separation. This was not a man who had simply accepted a breakup and moved on. This was a man who still wanted access, still wanted emotional reassurance, still wanted Jamie available to him. Then came the deeper look into how the relationship had actually fallen apart. Jacob said the breakup had come as a shock. On Valentine's Day, he had brought Jamie flowers and told her he loved her. According to him, she met him outside and told him she wanted a divorce. He claimed he never saw it coming. He said nothing had seemed seriously wrong before that. Jamie later told him she had been feeling that way for a while, he said, but had taken time to make sure she was certain. Jacob described himself as devastated. And then he admitted something chilling. He told officers that after the breakup, he had threatened to kill himself. He tried to minimize it by saying he didn't really mean it, that it was just him trying to pull a sympathy card, but that admission was revealing. Threatening self-harm in response to a partner leaving is not harmless drama. It is manipulation. It is pressure. It is one more way of trying to keep someone emotionally trapped. And police knew that. By now, the interview had become a mental standoff. Jacob was no longer just answering questions. He was trying to survive the conversation. He could feel the officers slowly closing in, even though they still hadn't laid out everything they knew. Then investigators turned to another key piece of the puzzle, Jacob's father. Earlier that day, before this police interview, Jacob had spoken on the phone with his father, Randy. At first, Jacob described it as a short call with bad reception. He said he tried talking to him, but the line kept cutting out. He claimed all he had really said was that police had called about Jamie and that he couldn't get a hold of her. He tried to make it sound ordinary. But the police already knew otherwise. They had already spoken with Randy. And Randy had shared something very different. This was the trap. The officer didn't come at Jacob directly. He didn't accuse him of lying. He simply said they had a chance to talk with his father, and his father had shared something a little different. Then he asked Jacob if he wanted to explain that part. That question hit like a switch. Immediately, Jacob knew the game was over. His father had told them. The truth Jacob had been desperately trying to keep buried was no longer hidden. Whatever he had confessed over that phone call, police now knew enough to push him straight into panic. And panic is exactly what happened. Within seconds, the conversation exploded into chaos. Officers moved to take him into custody. Jacob resisted. There was shouting, physical struggle, commands to get on the ground. He cried out that he was done, that he would cooperate, that he would do whatever they wanted. But it was too late. The mask had dropped. Everything he had been trying to control had collapsed. What investigators learned was devastating. At some point after Jamie began that important phone call about her job opportunity, Jacob forced his way in. Prosecutors later described the horror of those moments. Jamie had been in the middle of a professional conversation, focused on her future, speaking to someone about advancement and opportunities, when Jacob entered and attacked her. Her employer heard it happen in real time. They heard Jamie's fear. They heard the struggle. They heard her cries. And then, eventually, they heard silence. Jacob strangled Jamie with his bare hands. It was a deeply personal act of violence. Close. Intentional. Sustained. Strangulation is not accidental. It takes time. It takes force. It takes continued pressure even as the victim fights to survive. It is one of the clearest signs of intimate partner homicide, and one of the most chilling. And this was not a killing that came out of nowhere. As the case unfolded, a much clearer picture of Jacob emerged. Prosecutors argued that he had been controlling Jamie for a long time. He monitored her messages. He installed cameras around the home. He displayed increasingly violent behavior. What he presented to police as heartbreaking concern was, in reality, obsession, control, and possessiveness. The night before the murder, Jacob had discovered something that pushed him over the edge. Jamie had spent the evening with another man. For someone already controlling, already emotionally unstable, already unable to accept the end of the relationship, that became the breaking point. His jealousy erupted. His need for control took over. And Jamie paid with her life. When police found her around 7 p.m., it was already too late. The hope that she might still be alive was gone. What remained was the task of proving exactly who had done this and making sure a jury understood the full weight of what had been taken. One of the most powerful moments in the case came from Jacob's own father. Randy testified against his son. Think about how painful that must have been. A father taking the stand to help convict his own child. But according to prosecutors, Randy confirmed the details of the phone call Jacob had made after the murder. He told the court what Jacob had said. And that testimony destroyed any remaining illusion that this had been some mystery, some misunderstanding, some unexplained tragedy. It was murder. Plain and brutal. Jacob had initially denied everything. He had sat there with police pretending to be scared, pretending to be confused, pretending to be just another worried partner. But eventually, the truth broke through. He confessed. Even then, it wasn't enough to undo what he had done. In court, Jacob apologized to both families. On paper, maybe that sounds like remorse. But the judge didn't see true remorse in him. And honestly, when you look at the pattern, it is not hard to understand why. This was a man who had tried to control Jamie in life, then tried to control the narrative after her death. He didn't come forward out of guilt. He didn't surrender out of conscience. He lied until he realized the lies would not hold. After only 4 hours of jury deliberation, Jacob Spray was found guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 26 years in prison. And while that sentence brought legal closure, it could never bring Jamie back. That is the part that always lingers in cases like this. A young woman was building something for herself. She was earning an advanced degree. She was working hard. She was making plans. She was trying to separate from a relationship that no longer felt safe or healthy. She's moving toward a different future. And the person who claimed to love her could not stand the idea of losing access to her. So he took everything. That final phone interview makes this case especially haunting. Jamie wasn't alone in total silence. Someone heard the terror begin. Someone heard a moment of life turning into death. That makes this story even harder to shake, because it reminds us how quickly violence can break into an ordinary day. One moment, Jamie was talking about work. The next, she was fighting for her life. There's also something deeply disturbing about Jacob's interview with police. If you listen closely, you can hear the contradiction in almost every answer. He says they were fine, but then describes manipulation, jealousy, and conflict. He says he accepted the divorce, but then admits he would have taken her back instantly. He says he respected her space, but then reveals a pattern of emotional dependence and control. He wants to sound like a calm ex-partner, but what comes through is a man unraveling because the person he wanted to keep no longer belonged to him. And that, in the end, is what this case was about. Control. Not love. Not heartbreak. Not confusion. Control. Jamie Wilson should still be here. She should have had the chance to finish her degree, continue her career, and live the life she was working so hard to build. Instead, her name became part of a murder trial, and her final moments became evidence in a courtroom. That is the tragedy at the heart of this story. For anyone watching, this case is also a reminder to pay attention to the warning signs people too often dismiss. Extreme jealousy. Monitoring messages. Emotional manipulation. Threats of self-harm to keep someone from leaving. Invasive behavior disguised as love. Those things are not proof of passion. They are signs of danger. By the time police sat across from Jacob that night, Jamie was already gone. The interview was never really about saving her. It was about exposing him. Step by step, contradiction by contradiction, they let him build his own trap until one final truth he had shared with his father brought the whole thing crashing down. And when it did, the performance ended. No more confused fiancé. No more worried voice. No more frantic theories. Just a killer running out of lies. Jamie Wilson's story is heartbreaking not only because of how she died, but because of what she was trying to do before her life was stolen. She was trying to move forward. She was trying to grow. She was trying to create distance from someone who had already shown signs of manipulation and control. She deserved that chance. Instead, on March 26, 2024, her story ended in violence inside a trailer home, while her future waited on the other end of a phone call that she would never finish. And for Jacob Spray, the truth he tried to outrun caught up with him anyway. No matter how calm he tried to sound. No matter how many excuses he scattered around the room. No matter how many half-truths he wrapped himself in. The truth was stronger. And in the end, it spoke louder than he ever could.